Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Say What podcast. My name is Hanna, and on this podcast, we like to talk about marriage, sex, purity culture, relationships, painful sex, kind of all the really fun things here on this podcast. And today, I am so excited to have a guest on. We have Dr. Janelle Frederick with us. Hi, Dr. Janelle. I'm so excited you're here.
Hey, y'all. I am so excited to be here. Thank you, Hanna, for inviting me. I remember when I found you on Instagram, it was a reel that I think was going viral, and I found your page. I was like, oh my gosh, she's already following me. How did I not know who you were?
That's so
I
nice.
love what you do. I can't wait to get into the discussion, and I really appreciate you thinking about me being a guest.
Oh, thank you. I was going to say, when I first found you on Instagram, I was so obsessed. I was like, everything she posts is so good. This content is so good. I just love how you approach talking about vaginismus and how it's just such a fun topic when you approach it, because I'm sure you have seen and been maybe in even some Facebook groups. When I was first diagnosed with vaginismus, I joined one Facebook group and everything was so negative and so dreadful. And people were just like, I'm never going to be healed. And which I can understand feeling that way. I also felt that way. However, it was just the narrative was so negative, and I was just like, this is not what I need to see. And so anytime I find somebody talking about it in, a positive way of encouragement, I'm like, yes. And I just love your content, love what you do. You are making such an impact, and I'm just so excited we finally get to chat today. So I'm so happy to have you. So tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of give us the 30,000 foot overview, who you are, what you do, things like that.
Yeah. So I'm Janelle. Everyone knows me sort of in the media world as Vagina Rehab Doctor. Everything is spelled out. There's no abbreviation. So Vagina Rehab Doctor is sort of my branding name. And sometimes people forget that I have an actual name.
Right. My name is Janelle. It's not Vagina. But my first name is not Vagina.
Even Google will tell me in the morning, good morning, Vagina, because I think it thinks my first
because your name is Vagina. That is hysterical.
My name is Janelle. I actually recently got married this summer.
And you looked incredible. Oh my gosh, you already are so beautiful, but on your wedding day, it was just next level. Your dress, your makeup, hair, everything was so
You're the
stunning.
Don't make me
oh
blush,
my gosh,
girl. Don't make me
you looked so stunning. Literal. When I remember seeing your picture on Instagram, my mouth dropped open. I was like, oh my gosh, she's so beautiful.
That's amazing to hear, because that day was a whirlwind.
Of course, yeah.
But okay, so 4 years ago, I met my husband on Bumble. Actually, dating.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Love.
But more about me. So I actually grew up in Alabama. I was just telling you about that, in Huntsville, Alabama, and I grew up, still am a Christian, Seventh-day Adventist Christian, which is pretty conservative. And when I think about conservative religions, I think about Muslims, Seventh-day Adventists, Mormons, and Jehovah's Witnesses. I know there's something more, I just grew up, going to church every single week, and God pretty much informed almost every decision I made, down to what I eat. I mean, so
wow, okay.
Yeah, so religion was a big part of my life, and still is. So I have grown up just with a passion about helping women and people learn more about their sex life, and also just learning more about their body in a way that is shame-free. And the way that I approach sex education and just helping more people to understand things about painful sex, vaginismus, whatever the issues are with their pelvic floor and sex life, is regardless of your gender, your religion, your status, we should all learn about our bodies.
Absolutely.
And so I get a lot of shame sometimes from religious people online who are like, how do you talk about pleasure like this and you're religious? And I'm just like, we all need to learn it. I mean,
right. We all need to learn it. Yeah.
Let's say you're not married. I encourage even unmarried women to learn about their pleasure.
Absolutely. No, it's important for you to know what your body.
When they get to that place where they're able to act on it more, they're more educated, they're more equipped, they're more prepared, and they're likely going to be satisfied as well.
Right. Knowing what your body is and does and acts is not a bad thing.
Right.
That's why we have to call our body parts what they are. A vagina is a vagina. Girl, it is nothing else.
sex is sex, orgasm is orgasm,
Right,
like all of
right.
that stuff. So
Even though Instagram hates me and I do have to censor the words I type, which is like the worst thing. I have no idea how you are still able to have vagina in your handle, because if I type vagina, they're like, done, you're off. You can never be on Instagram again.
You think that stuff will get better? That
It's gotten worse. No.
It's gotten worse. Yeah.
Yes. Yet there's so much porn on Instagram somehow. I'm like, I'm just trying to educate. Yet I can scroll and I'm like getting an invite to something.
I'm like, so let me get this straight. I can be a porn star, but I can't be a sex educator.
Correct.
That is
It's
exactly
crazy.
what Instagram treats you as such. Anyway,
It's so frustrating.
But yeah, my background is physical therapy. Initially, I did orthopedic. Then I transitioned to pelvic floor physical therapy, which at the time was called women's health physical therapy.
Oh, okay.
Now we're sort of using more inclusive language, pelvic health and pelvic floor. And I worked at Northwestern here in Chicago. That is really where I got the bulk of my experience as a pelvic floor physical therapist. Saw a ton of stuff. I mean, like postpartum tears, 3rd and 4th degree tearing, incontinence, prolapse, vaginismus, vulvodynia, literally the whole gamut. And I realized that I had the most fulfillment with sexual dysfunction. So I just, that's what Vagina Rehab Doctor is about. We just want women to get laid without pain.
Yes, that is the goal. Yes, no, truly. Did you ever think like little Janelle who grew up in like the really conservative church? Did you ever think like, are people shocked that you're talking about sex on the internet and having an orgasm, or is that something you could see yourself doing as a little girl? I mean, I guess as a little girl, you're not thinking about it, but like as a young girl growing up, teenagers, like, is this surprising to you, or are you like, oh no, this kind of tracks?
You know what? It's interesting. So growing up, my dad is very much like, I don't want to call him this because it'll sound disrespectful, but he's a clown.
Okay.
A very big clown. And he's also at the same time very like philosophical, and he'll get a book out in a second. Janelle, read this page and this book, and he's into theology. He even went to school for theology.
Oh, cool.
So my dad openly talked about penises and balls and vaginas. Yeah. So I grew up with like less squeamishness about that stuff. Yes. Just because we just said those words throughout the house.
It's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And so granted, it's interesting. I didn't get like a ton of sex talks. Like this is pleasure and this is what happens when you have sex. But in terms of just talking about sexual parts, I grew up with that from the age of, I don't even know, like a child.
So it wasn't in a shameful way in your home.
It wasn't in a shameful way.
But I guess when the church, was that kind of opposite for you? I don't know a lot about Seventh Day Adventists, I'll be honest.
So we're taught that we're supposed to wait until marriage. But I would say there isn't like, I didn't grow up with negative views about sex.
Okay, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah.
So like, I knew I was supposed to wait, but I also saw my parents very affectionate, physical. And then in the church that I grew up in, even though we were told not to do it before marriage, there was still a lot of talk about like sex. Not a ton, but I personally, at least in the church that I went to, I didn't feel like a lot of shame.
That's awesome.
I can see how even people in my same religion did. It's just my own personal experience. I didn't grow up with those feelings.
Yeah, gotcha. That's awesome. No, that's really good.
Yeah, but I will say that also, honestly, I think my personality.
But I say if you come from a dad who's like being silly, I'm like, I can see where your reels come from, where your like fun videos. You're like, that's your dad.
Girl, you don't know the slightest. Like my dad is a mess. Sometimes I'm like, Dad, that's too much. Like that's how
you're like, okay, calm down.
Right. So I think my personality, my household that I grew up in, and then also just the knowledge that I was getting as a pelvic floor physical therapist. Like I want as many people to know this. Yeah. So for me, I think it was a combination of all that stuff, but also I think anything that I talk about, I'm probably going to do it shamelessly.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to talk about, like even before I started talking about vaginas and the pelvic floor, I was talking about travel, and that's not really something people are ashamed about, but I was talking about it everywhere.
So
I'm just that type of person. Like whatever I decide to do, I'm just going to be talking about it all the time, probably.
Yeah. With no shame. You're confident in who you are, and that's fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah, I feel like once I started talking about this on the internet, it just felt so like natural to me. Like it's not even like a second thought anymore. I'm like, oh yeah, I will tell you about this new vibrator that I got, and I think it's really great, and like you should use it too. It's like not even like a second thought. I'm just like, yeah, this is what we do. This is who I am, and it doesn't occur to me that it's like not everybody talks like that. I'm like, what? You guys don't talk about sex? And so it's good that we're, helping break that mold, because that's important to help break down that shame. So I guess you really got into pelvic floor work just from your studies at Northwestern, and you were like, okay, I really see this is an area that people need help with. Or did you experience this on your own? Like, have you had pelvic floor issues and then that kind of led you to do that as well?
Yeah, great question. So actually before Northwestern, so I did orthopedic PT for about a year or two, then traveling physical therapy, which I love.
Wow.
So listening, and you're a pelvic PT or a PT at all, listen, if you're not like a parent, or if you're not, you don't have to be in one spot, traveling is the best. Anyways.
Yeah.
So quick plug for travel PT. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's not an ad-free listen.
Right.
But after that, one of my travel assignments was in Oakland, California. And it was just bladder. Actually, it was not sex related at all. It was like incontinence, so bladder leaks, frequent urination, and urgent urination. So you're like, oh, I gotta make it to the bathroom right now, and that can really disrupt your life. Like I don't think people understand, like your bladder can truly be like the boss of your life. Like
absolutely, 1000%.
You have to leave social events because you constantly have to pee, or you have to wear pads. You don't feel confident just going places. I mean, a lot. So I actually extended that travel assignment beyond 3 months to a whole year, and it was only supposed to be 3 months. And then after that, for me, it was very clear, like, okay, I enjoy the pelvic floor more than general PT. That's when I came to Chicago, did a residency. So I actually did a 1-year residency at Loyola. Then I eventually started working at Northwestern. Then I started using social media, and then I quit.
Gotcha. Nice.
So now I just work for myself, and sort of, that's my background.
Yeah, because you have your own practice. Is that the word? Because you have two other ones.
I mean, you can call it a practice, but really it's just it's a company, because we don't do in person. All of the care that we do.
That's right.
Yeah, all the care that we do is telecare. So we're using video, we're using ebooks, we're using master classes, and believe it or not, like I'm finding that this works better than the in person in terms of how quickly it helps people to overcome vaginismus and sexual pain. When I was working in person, I mean, I could have patients come to see me for several months, like 6+ months, and there's like no significant change. Whereas with the telecare that we do, I mean, on average, it takes 8 or 9 sessions to help someone overcome their vaginismus.
Wow, that's fast. I feel like in the vaginismus world, that's quick. That's quick, because it usually is like a long time.
We have people where it's like 3 weeks. Now, for those people, they're like on a bigger dilator. They're not starting from nothing.
Right.
So it's different for everyone, but the average is literally 2 to 3 months.
Wow. And I think it's so good that you're talking about this, because I have talked to so many women who are like, I literally live in the middle of nowhere. There is not one single pelvic floor physical therapist near me, and I'm stuck. I don't know what to do. I've talked to somebody who is willing to drive like 2 hours to a physical therapist near them to get healing. And like, I love the dedication. I feel like I even encouraged that at that point, because I wasn't sure about all the tech or like virtual ones, but if that was her only option, I was like, that's the only option, go. But now, like, knowing that there's people out there who do virtual, it's like, okay, that is so important, and it makes it accessible for those who aren't able to go to somebody in person. And knowing that you've seen so much success, I think really just speaks to the like how all the work that you guys are doing, and how much it is working, and like helping people experience pain-free sex, which is just the best thing, and helping them live a more confident life.
Right. I'm so glad you said that, because I'm glad that pelvic floor physical therapy in person is getting more awareness, more media coverage, all of that. But at the same time, I think there's a big assumption that everyone has access to that. So it's like you said, if you live in a smaller city or a town, a lot of people don't have someone, or they've exhausted it. Like in London,
that's what I was about to say too.
I think they give you like 6 sessions or 8 in London, even though it's free, which is great.
Right.
But like after that, you're kind of stuck. And let's say the pelvic
Right.
PT wasn't able to help you get to that point. So I think that there are so many different areas where teletreatment is so helpful and necessary. And even for people who are just not comfortable with someone going inside of, their vagina.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a lot. That's literally a lot. That's like a lot of things that I tell people is like when you go to pelvic therapy, they are putting their fingers inside of you. So you do have to feel comfortable with the doctor, which is why I was so thankful that when I was going through this that I lived in Denver because I had like all the resources available to me because we lived in a big city. So it was like when my first pelvic floor therapist I went to, that was really not a good fit. I was able to find somebody else and then that like changed everything for me. But I know that is definitely a privilege. That's not everybody's experience is that they don't have options like that. So the fact that we're able to do this telehealth and you can meet with anybody anywhere is just truly game changing for all involved. And I'm so grateful that you guys are doing it.
Yeah. I love it. I absolutely love it. I do know that there are some parts of in-person that I miss, which is mainly just being able to see someone in person.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, a lot of the things that we do with in-person pelvic floor therapy, you can teach someone to do a similar thing on their own. And so that's really where we shine, where we're really doing coaching and we're not doing the whole like you're depending on us to like fix you. We're coaching you to sort of take the healing into your own hands and
which in turn makes you more confident too, like which helps get the process as you feel the confidence and you feel like, oh, I'm actually like seeing success and it's me, like I'm really doing this, and that just plays such a huge role in like trying to get pain free is actually feeling confident that you're seeing success.
Like so vaginismus and sexual pain is about like fear and not just the pelvic floor tightness. There's a lot of fear, lack of confidence, and so I think when we're helping these women actually pick up the tools in their own hands and their own, they're just feeling way more secure and confident. And because of that, we're seeing changes more quickly. So
and your mindset is so much of it. It's not all of it. Like just thinking like, oh, I'm gonna have pain-free sex is not gonna fix it, but it helps you be motivated and keep going. And when you're speaking that, which is why when I first joined that Facebook group and it was just like everybody was talking about such negative stuff, I was just like, okay, this is not what I need to be reading. This is not going to help me experience pain-free sex. Like this is only going to keep me as like negative and down and sad. And there is a place to like be empathetic and have those feelings, like totally. Like I'm not dismissing that at all. Like there were definitely times I needed to like cry about it and complain and do all that. But if you stay in that place, then you're never going to get to the healing that you want.
And I noticed the same thing actually. Because I joined Vaginismus Facebook groups to learn how people feel living with it. Like I think that's so important for us as a company, like not just myself but my colleagues. I'm like, we wanna know what you all are thinking. We wanna know what your fears are. So I joined those groups to really understand, but also to offer some tips here and there. And I noticed the same thing. So like I don't know why, but I was scared to start my own Facebook group. I do not know why. I don't understand it. I'm like, okay, I already have an Instagram account with like hundreds of thousands of people. Why am I scared? But anyways, I finally did that, and we're trying to like make sure that it's not that. Where we're giving space for people to let their feelings out and complain and feel validated.
Right.
Also to like find solutions because we need to get better. Right.
Yeah, it's good to have your feelings validated. You want to feel that way, and you also want to have a safe place. And I know people feel like the internet can be their place because some people aren't just going to their friends and being like, "I'm experiencing painful sex," and it's the worst thing, So it's like this has a level of I can never say the word anonymity and anonymously. I can never say that word correctly. No, it gives the listeners know what we're talking about. It gives you a level of that, so you can feel confident to share your feelings. But we do, like you said, we got to find a solution. We can't just sit in it. And I know, like towards the end of the episode, we'll talk about like one thing that you're doing, like your program right now, which is very like has like good solution based at the end of it, but which is something people can join, which we'll talk about that later. But I'm very excited. So speaking of solutions and healing, one thing that I saw that you had posted about on Instagram when I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is some good stuff. And I want to talk a little bit about it today. It's the MAPP process as far as like when you experience painful sex following like MAPP to help you experience healing. I think is so good because I know from my personal experience when I like first, sex is hurting for a year, and I'm over here just like putting on my best performance, acting like it's not hurting. And because I'm like, I don't know what to do. I think this is what sex is like. I have no idea how to experience healing. And so I'm just going to like fake it till I make it and cross my fingers and hope it gets better. And obviously that didn't happen. And I just remember feeling so overwhelmed, having like no idea what to do, no what steps to take, like nothing. And I even was at that point had like resources. Like I was going to therapy every week, like something I could have shared about, and I just didn't because I felt a lot of shame about it. But I just think you breaking it down like this in a way to like help you take steps towards healing is so helpful. So could you maybe walk us through what that is?
Sure, yeah. So I always like to use acronyms for people to remember stuff. And I think there's a lot of people that follow me that just want to not be so controlled by their body. I think when you feel like trapped in your body of like, I'm stuck, it's a very disempowering feeling. And so I created the MAPP acronym to just help people understand sort of like the step-by-step process of how to get to enjoyable, pain-free sex, vaginismus-free living, all of that. So M stands for opening your mind. A lot of what we deal with when we're struggling with pelvic health issues is a lot of doubt, a lot of fear, shame, guilt, and all of these things typically don't encourage you to take the steps necessary. For example, if you're really ashamed of your condition, that's actually probably going to limit you from telling the people who need to be told.
Right.
I've had so many people tell me that they even felt ashamed to tell their doctor or their medical provider. So like, we can't just go immediately to relax your pelvic floor.
Right.
We need to like encourage people like, hey, this is, you know how many people just in America have vaginismus? It's well over 1 million. So women and vagina CEOs. And people, not just people. So like, I love to start there with whatever you're doing is like your mind. Because
I think it's so important.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it's so important. Like I remember when I was at the very first pelvic floor physical therapist I saw, she immediately was like, okay, let's get you on lidocaine, let's get you on diazepam, and was just like jumping to these medications. And I was just like, okay, whoa, like that feels like a lot. And that was just kind of like really bogging me down because she was like, you're too tight for us to do any kind of therapy on you. And I was just like, okay, so we have to do this, which I understand big picture now. She was trying to work with my nervous system, but she was just like throwing medication at me, and I was just like, okay, this is not like getting me to a good mental space. It was really like bogging me down. And then once I started like actually sharing in therapy, like because I was already going to like regular therapy, like for my mental health. And once we really started working on like my mindset around this, and I had found a new physical therapist, those two working together was like, okay, that's what I needed. Like I really felt validated when my holistic pelvic floor therapist was like, it's not just in your mind, like your body is like rejecting this, like it's not just your mind. However, your mindset does play a role in this because your body is one piece. It's not just your pelvic floor, like your jaw is connected to it, like it's not just so we got to work on it as a whole and not just jump to your pelvic floor. And so I love that mind is like the place that you're starting with. It's like opening your mind and working through those shame.
And to me it's like, I understand though that as pelvic floor physical therapists, we are not mental health counselors and all that. So like, I do understand that like a physical therapist will be focused on the physical. Like that
no, makes sense. Totally.
I think
totally.
What I've learned, especially like when I left the typical physical therapy background and like working at a hospital clinic, it gave me an opportunity to study more about vaginismus and vulvodynia and all these things where it's typically something involved, whether it's anxiety or a fear of pain, usually, not all the time. And so for me, my thing that I noticed was if you're in your mind, you're struggling with a lot of fear, you're afraid of things going in your vagina, you're ashamed of your body, right? You don't think that you deserve to feel pleasure. Whatever those mental things are, when you are doing the physical interventions, the dilator, the finger, the wand, the pelvic floor therapy, they don't work as well.
Right.
Because in your mind, you're worried. You think that you're making yourself worse. You're worried. Why is it stinging? Why is it burning? So if we don't like have this foundation of like, hey, I need you to know all of this is curable. All of this can be fixed. It will be difficult. Don't get it twisted.
Right.
But if you can just trust your body more, that helps a ton. And so I like to start with that. Open your mind to healing. Open your mind to, and these are not unrealistic thoughts. Like, I'm not saying you're going to be able to ride on a horse and fly through the sky. We're talking about realistic things that we have seen done over and over again, and it can happen to you. So that is what the M stands for. Is like, if your mind is closed, then how do you expect your pelvic floor to be open?
Right. That's so good. Yeah. Because if you're also thinking like, okay, well, I'll never get healed, then your body's just going to follow that. Like, your body's just going to follow what your mind is. So if you're constantly saying like, I'll never get healed, this is it for me, then like, you're not going to see any results. Like, I really feel like I started seeing a shift in my healing process when I had gone through some therapy, was working on it, and was re-regulating my nervous system and like learning to trust my body again. That's when I felt like, oh, okay, this isn't as painful. You know, my therapist going through, she's like, this is feeling better. Like, you're not having that visceral response like you had been before. And we're like, okay, like, we're seeing some improvement. And a lot of it was starting with my mind.
Totally. Yeah. So your mind is connected to your nervous system. Your nervous system is driving your pelvic floor. That's not the only thing, of course, but that's just the one part of MAPP, right? So the M is MAPP. The A that I like to say is availability, and open that up. Healing takes time. Literally, it's not just a quote. Like, it takes time on your schedule. So I meet a lot of women who want to get better, but there's so many other things that are taking priority, right? They're in residency, or their job, or a project, or travel. I mean, some of them really work. They're going on 4 trips for the year, and I'm like, I love that for you. I'm a traveler myself, but understand that getting through this, it's going to take you to do some homework even outside of the time that we work with you. So if you don't like literally look on your Google Calendar, and take 2 to 3 hours for the entire week where you can say, this is time for my pelvis to heal. This is time for my sexual health to reign. This is time for my pleasure. Then it's probably going to take you years or more. To overcome.
No, that's... and definitely.
That is so important. I'm sure you can share your experience.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I try to, whenever I'm talking to people about this, I'm always reminding them, like, this is not gonna happen overnight. As much as you want it to happen overnight, like, it's not like tomorrow you're gonna go to one pelvic floor session and you're gonna be healed instantly. I talk to a lot of people who like do see some progress after their first one, which is huge, but it's like, it's not gonna happen overnight, and you have to be like dedicated to the long haul. But since I try to remind people that, since you are taking these steps already, like, you're doing half the battle. Like, I feel like the first step is always the hardest, of like getting that like hump, like getting over like the fear of trying to reach out for help or whatever. And so like, once you've done that, like, you're already on the upwards trajectory to experience healing. I know it took me, from the time I went to the doctor, it was like 7 months, I think, total of healing. And that's like seeing 2 different doctors and different dilators. But I will say, like, once I experienced healing, I was like, okay, good, it's pain-free. And then after having a baby almost 2 years ago, that also reset my pelvic floor in some way. And now it's even better than it was then. And I had no idea that could even happen. I was like, I thought, which it was good. I'm never, like, I tell people, like, I'm not lying to you guys, like, that I wasn't experiencing healing, but it's just like better than ever before. But yeah, it took, and I don't know if 7 months, if that's like the norm, if it's not, that's how long it took me. But but through that time, I obviously saw like progress, and that always helps you mentally when you're seeing progress.
It's interesting that you say 7 months, because before I left to do Vagina Rehab Doctor full time, when I was in person, it would take, I think, on average 6 months for me to help someone. And that was with in person, which at that time, I didn't think was bad. That's all I knew. I kind of thought it was good. 6 months. But yeah, I think the sooner you can accept that this is going to take a good part of your focus, not all of your time. I do think some people are even overdoing it. Like, some people dilate every single day. I don't encourage that.
That's a lot.
Yeah, that's like weightlifting every day. Your butt's not going to
Yeah.
get bigger.
No, right, right. Your body needs some rest time in between.
Yeah,
that.
like your
Yeah.
muscles need rest.
Right.
And transforming through vaginismus and sexual pain, that is a taxing process.
It really is.
We have clients who tell us like they'll email us and say, "Hey, is it normal that I feel extremely tired and sleepy after a session?" No, your
Right.
nervous system, the way your body is opening up to these dilators, you are
Yes.
literally changing your brain.
Oh, I was dead after like I literally would get in the car, drive home, and Thomas knew like I needed to like sit and not do anything, not speak to anybody. Like it really took so much out, and not it wasn't that way every session, but a lot of sessions it would be like, okay, no, I'm exhausted. Like I would not schedule anything after my therapy because I knew like I just needed to.
Yeah,
I needed to sit.
yeah. So I think like honestly, 3 times a week minimum of like hands-on or dilation or something, as long as it's long enough. We do see people that are like, yeah, I've been dilating 3 times a week. How long? 5 to 10 minutes. I'm like, oh,
Okay.
well, that's
Yeah.
probably not enough time.
Right.
But yeah, so the A is availability, your time, your calendar. Like
you have to treat it seriously too. Like
Yeah.
you can't just like have it on your calendar and skip it, which I know that like I personally would do. I've talked to people that are like, yeah, I'm like, no, you have to treat like if you have a work meeting, you're not missing your work meeting. You're not just being like, I'm too tired to go to my work meeting. No, like you need to, your body is worth it. Like you are worthy of not skipping that meeting.
Correct.
And that's another like mental place you have to be at is like you have to understand that like you are worth this. You are worth the time it takes. Like this is just as a priority as anything else.
And I will say, though, that it's easier to stick to that when you do have accountability.
Right.
So
yes.
you can probably go years of like, okay, this is important. It's not that it's not important to you. It's that we're just social beings. And it's easier to keep an appointment when there's someone else on the other end. If it's just you and your invisible friend, you cannot show up and no one will know. Right. So it is a lot easier to stay consistent with things when you have someone that you have to meet.
Definitely.
Or if you don't show up, it's like, where were you?
Where were you? Right. They're like holding accountable, which is a big deal.
And I have to just admit that because like even with my own health, like, I had a personal trainer and girl, woo!
Yeah.
I mean, there were days where I still didn't want to come, and I even had an appointment, so it's hard.
Definitely. I was just telling my husband that I wanted to join a gym that was like classes based because if I am just told like, or if I'm telling myself just to go work out, it is literally not happening. But if I'm going to a class where I took someone else's spot and I signed up for it, like I'm going. Like I mentally, I'm like I can't miss that. But if it's just on my calendar, I'm like, nah, no one's gonna know.
Exactly, and I think that it's just so helpful, whether it's
I'm so glad you brought that up.
WPT or a friend or something, because we're just so social. So the next, MA, and then the next P is your pelvic. Is it pelvic floor? Yes, your pelvic floor.
Pelvic floor.
So opening your pelvic floor, and I like to say, vaginismus, and not just vaginismus. If you're having extremely painful sex, generally the muscles are too tight. Not all the time, but generally. Specifically for vaginismus, I like to explain it like this. Vaginismus is like trying to put a writing pen, through the eye of a needle. That needle, the eye of the needle is your vagina currently.
Yes.
So we got to open that hole. If that doesn't open, the only other option is to decrease the size of the pen, the writing pen. So we're either going to shrink the penis or we're going to increase the size of the vagina.
And it's like, probably can't shrink the penis unless you're going to get somebody else.
Is that, right?
Yeah,
so,
right.
I mean, even from a visual standpoint, a lot of our clients have said, like, when they use a mirror, they can't even find the hole. It's so small. So this is, as much as I believe in the mental healing and all that, and mental therapy, it is a physical barrier.
Yes.
The hole is not big enough.
Right.
And so that part is very curable. The whole thing is curable. But that takes a process, which includes exercises, hands-on generally, and other things to actually create change in those muscular fibers so that we have the flexibility now, so that we're not forcing sex. It doesn't feel like you're ripping, you're not feeling burning or a brick wall, or all of those things. It's literally just a muscle that needs to be stretched.
Yes.
So that is the process that takes the length of time, because you cannot have that level of change over a muscle group in a week generally.
Right.
Sometimes there are miracles, but I think that's pretty rare, where it's like, oh.
Yeah, no, it definitely is rare.
I'd be a billionaire if it only took us a week, right? So that is the P, is like your pelvic floor has a very, very big impact, not just on having PIV, but also feeling pleasurable sex.
Yes, because it's like, okay, good, you can insert, but it's like you also want it to be pleasurable. Like, that's a lot of the part of sex, you know. It's like main part of having sex. You want it to feel good, so it's not just about, okay, you're able to insert, great. It's like, no, okay, there's more to it than just that, you know.
Because we can't forget about the people who can have sex, but it still sucks. It's like super painful, or they feel no pleasure at all, or in certain positions you feel like it's hitting something, or I mean, that is still pelvic floor, unless there's endometriosis, there's ovarian cysts, but assuming that those things have been cleared and it's not those things causing the painful sex, then the pelvic floor needs to be released and relaxed. And I encourage people, even when you get to PIV, don't immediately just give up on all your interventions. Keep going, because you want the pelvic floor to be healthy. It's not just about sex. It's about your body and your pleasure and your comfort, your pelvis. It's so much. So, and even pregnancy and postpartum. So literally, Hanna is like, once she got that big stretch, that baby, I'm assuming the baby.
Yes, he did. Yeah. No, he did. Once he came out there, my vagina was like, let's go. Everything's open.
You got to that place of like the actual level of flexibility probably required to get more blood flow, feel more pleasure.
Right.
So now she's having the best sex of her life.
Truly. Yeah. I had no idea. I thought that what I had before was the best sex. And if that was all it really would have been great. Like, truly, I'm not saying that it wasn't. I had no idea. And I had so much fear going into it.
It went from a 10 out of 10 to a 12 out of 10 is what you're saying?
Absolutely. Yes, a 12 out of 10 for sure. And my pelvic therapist, she had said before, she's like, I think at that time, which there may be some now, but at that time she was like, I've not seen any like actual research that explains like why like some women giving birth actually heals their vaginismus, but I've heard that happens a lot. She goes, in my own life I've seen that a lot, like with things. She was like, so you've already experienced healing, so we'll just see what happens like when it goes before. And it worked for me. So
and I just want to put it out there, like, it's your experience. So like it obviously doesn't happen for everyone. For some people, vaginismus gets worse or it stays the exact same, and then some people it's resolved. Like it was the cure for them. I've heard a similar thing for endometriosis, where some people are like, just being pregnant for 9 months, there's way more progesterone, which helps the endometriotic lesions to sort of die down. But again, that's not everyone's experience. So I love that
Oh, thank you. I did want to also go back to what you were saying about the pelvic floor being a muscle, and to bring the like purity culture aspect back into this. I think that thinking about it as a muscle, I know really helped me and other people I've talked to be able to separate or kind of remove some of the shame from it. Because growing up in the church, there's a lot of like, hush hush conversations about your bodies. Like you aren't taught the body parts names. You're just like, it's a cookie or Lulu, or even those words make me cringe so much more than saying vagina or vulva. But it just, thinking about it as a muscle really helped remove some shame from me, and not thinking about it as some like big secret private thing. I mean, obviously, like, my vagina is private. Like, I'm not trying to like let everybody else see it, but thinking about it in the aspect of, okay, it is just a muscle that we're trying to stretch and we're trying to work out, really helped remove some of the shame that I was experiencing, rather than, because I was just like, this big deal, this big secret thing, it just felt so shameful. And thinking about it as a muscle, I'm like, okay, that's helpful. Like, if I break, like, I used to use the example, if you break your arm, you go to therapy. Like, okay, if your pelvis or pelvic floor feels like it's broken, you're just going to go to therapy. But now I have actually broken my leg, so now I use the leg. I'm like, when I broke my leg, I went to physical therapy. So, and now if you break your if your vagina feels like it's broken, you need to go. It's like the same thing. I'm like, there's no shame in that.
And there's no shame. And I even I was talking to one of our clients this morning. Yeah, she sent me a text message. We worked with her for her vaginismus. She also had a little bit of a complicated history with a history of breast cancer. So she had the vaginismus, but she also had like the decreased estrogen.
Yeah.
And because of the medications and stuff. She was married, also Christian woman, and she worked with us for 8 weeks. We got her to be able to get to PIV, pain-free. She was enjoying it. And then, I mean, it's now been several months, and I like to check in on people. So I was just checking in on her, and it's taken her a while to respond. And she actually told me, she's like, I'm so embarrassed that I've regressed. So I think for her, she was feeling ashamed of like, because there's the shame of just telling someone you have a problem.
Right.
And then there's the shame of feeling like, oh, I wasn't able to keep up.
Yes.
Well, that's what I always say. Don't immediately throw away your dilators or burn.
Yeah. Right. It's good to have them because you never know. Yeah.
Forever. I don't think no one has to do this forever, but I do think like, if you get to PIV in February, I don't think the next day you should be like, I'm done,
I'm out. Yeah.
I think, there's probably like a 2-month period where you should just keep sort of going with some things, maybe not as consistently, but because you are having sex, which is still sort of therapeutic.
Right.
But anyways, I had to tell her, I was like, listen, there is no shame in reaching out and saying, hey, I need a tune-up.
Yeah.
We do that for literally every other part of our body.
Right.
I got to go back to my dentist. I got to go back to my doctor. There is a follow-up in 3 months for your doctor.
Right.
They're like, come back and see me in 3 months. So I think that we need to also like give women permission to, yes, move forward, but also there's no shame in feeling like you have taken a step back because things happen. It could have been your stress level. It could have been something going on with your medications. It could have been your marriage or your relationships. Grief. Also, a lot of people grieving. Family members, those things can impact the pelvic floor in ways we know not of. So I think that the shame, there's just no place for shame when we're trying to heal. So absolutely. That's the P. The pelvic floor is a big part of what we do, of course, because I'm a pelvic physical therapist. But we have to address that. And so I see people like, they do dilator 1 or 2, and then they're going to try and have sex. I'm like
that's also not the same size usually. So
it doesn't work that way. And I get the urgency, like you just want to be past it. And also there's curiosity, like, will this work? But we just have to open the pelvic floor. And I also like to use the term soften the pelvic floor. So when your muscles are that tight, they are stiff, they're hard, they're rigid. And so there's a softening process, which is not easy, as cute as it sounds. That softening process is hard.
So
So the pelvic floor is a big part of the healing phase. So that's the P, the first P in the MAPP.
Right. And then there's one more P, right?
Yeah. The last P is your pocket. So you want to invest financially in your healing. And I'm not saying that you need to spend $10,000 and, go to Botox 1,000,000 times. But I do think that we easily invest in all these other things. I mean, we'll get a car, we'll get a house, we'll get a couch, we'll put anything on a payment plan with no problem. But then when it comes to healthcare, if it's not 100% covered by your insurance, people are like, oh, I don't know.
Do it.
And I'm like, hey, this is your mental health. This is your marriage. This is your future. This is even
your livelihood.
Pregnant.
Yes.
There's a lot involved. And so I think that wherever you can invest, be willing. There's no greater investment than you. And so I think like if you want to get better and it has not been working with these very free or sort of low ticket ways, willing to invest in experts who have studied, who have the reputation, who can help you. And generally speaking, that investment is worth it. Now, sometimes it doesn't work out, but for the most part, generally you have a very high chance of getting better when you invest in the experts that have studied.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that gives you like a motivation too. You're like, okay, I'm putting my money into this. Like, okay, if I'm putting my money into this, like mentally it's like, okay, like I'm going to work harder or do more or try it because I have actually like invested like monetary, dollars into it. I feel like it's also like a mental thing too, going back to the mind.
Totally. Like, okay, and I do understand like honestly, finances is hard. So
Oh my gosh, in this economy, yes. Yeah.
and that's why
Yeah.
I always like to have different offerings,
Mm-hmm.
ebooks, master classes, all of these things that are low ticket, stretch labs, but that doesn't always do everything. That may
Right.
help you get improvement. They may help you go up on a dilator size.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes to get all the way to like, okay, pain-free, liberating sex,
Yeah.
you sometimes need that one-on-one expert help. And I
Definitely.
do think that sometimes we're just like, oh, I don't want to spend my money.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you want, if you want
Right.
your body to transform, sometimes the financial investment is generally required.
Yeah.
I love MAPP. I think it is like so good. It just like gives you an easy step by step of what to do. And I think really just like encompasses everything. Like when we're going through vaginismus, like what you should do. I just think it was a really good, like easy process. I love a process. I love an acronym. So, so good. So good. Well, one thing we have to talk about is how to keep things spicy while you have vaginismus. Because as you know, like I know we get in our heads, we're like, okay, we can't do anything fun if we can't actually have like PIV. But there are so many other things we can do if you have without, doing the actual PIV. So what are some tips for keeping things, spicy and fun while you're like in the middle of going through this?
Oh, that's a good question. I think one of the things that can be done is like just literally increasing sexual communication between your partner. So when your partner is at work or maybe they're out of town or even if they're in the other room, literally just sending a text message that's kind of dirty and spicy
Yeah.
and sexual, just because it can support the relationship. Because really, that's what we want to strengthen. It's not necessarily sticking something in the vagina.
Right.
We want to get to that place to strengthen the relationship. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
like one of the things that you could do is you can send naughty pictures to your partner.
Ooh, yes.
You can also just tell them what you're looking forward to and like what you're thinking about them or what you can't wait to do with them. I
Yeah.
think that is really, really important because it builds desire, it builds excitement, and it also just shows your partner that they're desired.
Yes.
So sometimes it can be difficult, right? Especially when there's discomfort around sex, fear. But that can help you to get out of your comfort zone a little bit and also
Yeah.
encourage your partner that, yes, I'm struggling with this, but I still want to be intimate with you.
Yes.
So I love that. And then another thing that can be done is just using sex toys. So
Yeah.
sex toys, I am a fan. I really think that they're underutilized.
Yes.
So you can play with vibrators. You can play with clitoral suction toys. Are my number one sex toy.
Okay.
And
Okay. How have I not gotten one of those? Like I'm going on it
Yeah.
lately. I know. I get in my routine. I find what I like and stick to it. I got it. Okay.
Oh
Okay.
my
Adding
God.
it to my
I can
list.
give you like at least 3 sex toy records. So
Fantastic.
while we're here, I would say a good one for beginners is the Satisfier.
Okay. I've heard of that. I've seen it. Like
Yeah.
I just have not
Yeah.
ordered one.
And again,
Okay.
this is ad free, you guys. They're not paying.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Satisfyer.
Okay.
That's a really great
Perfect.
one. Is
I'll
sometimes
link it.
with vaginismus, you can feel sensitive down there. I
Yes.
think that's
Yes.
a great one to start to sort of
Okay.
ramp up the orgasms and the pleasure, even if it's not orgasm, but just the pleasure itself.
Yeah.
So that is great. Just allowing
Yes.
your partner to use the sex toy on you, or even using it directly on yourself could be an amazing way. And then I think role playing is really cool.
Ooh. Yes.
Like
Fun.
imagining that your partner is either, let's say, I don't know, a police officer, and you're in.
There you go. Yeah.
You don't even have to dress.
Yeah,
just act like you are in trouble, and they're
Right.
putting
Just
you in
making it
handcuffs.
fun.
Get some
Yeah.
handcuffs. That stuff is like really cool, really fun.
Yeah.
And also, I really love just like walking around with less clothes.
Yes.
Like that's
Love
a
it.
good one, especially when it's. I know it's not summer now, but when it's
Right.
hot outside, it's like, what you got clothes on for?
I know. You're like, we're both home, we're married, what are we doing? Why do we have clothes on? Let's just
Yeah.
have fun. And I'm sure the frequency of how often you're being intimate will jump up if you're,
Definitely.
naked more often.
Definitely. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed that.
Fantastic.
If you really want to, dabble in some stuff, you can like make your own naughty video. You can just set up
Yeah.
a recording, and you guys can watch yourselves together. That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that's
It's like,
fun. Oh yeah.
Yeah, this is gonna be funny and hot at the same time.
Right.
Like,
I don't know if I could personally do that because I'm just like, I don't think I need to see my position like that. I don't know that I would ever recover. Although I'm mostly just laying down. So like, how much can you see just laying down?
That's your future dare, Hannah.
I know.
I dare you.
You're right. You're right.
To record at least.
I gotta get out of my comfort zone.
If you don't like it, you can always do
that
it.
requires and that requires a lot of trust between you and your partner as well.
Please do not do this if you do not trust your partner.
Absolutely, absolutely. Could not have those videos out there for the world to see.
Right.
But
there's
good confidence
there's
booster.
so much that can be done in life.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about that because I didn't want people to feel limited. Because obviously, I know like they do have that desire to have the PIV, but I just don't want people to feel like limited to where you're not able to be intimate. You can't and join in on the fun things. I'm sure people in our circles are talking about. Yes,
nipple play, oral sex.
Right.
Obviously, there's intercourse where even if it's not going inside, you can sort of rub up against each other, and that can still be very pleasurable for both partners.
Yeah, totally.
There's hand jobs. I mean,
right. The options are endless.
Yeah,
there's so much.
I would say before we end is the 10-5-10 method. So I came up with this method maybe I think 2 years ago, and it's a foreplay method that can really get you wet, aroused, excited, all of that.
Oh, please share.
Yeah, the first 10 minutes is you have to stay from the neck up. So set a timer. You put the timer on there, 10 minutes. So kissing on the neck, kissing on the lips, the ears, everything neck and above. And I think this is important because sometimes we forget to just make out.
Yes,
so this is giving you that permission. So 10 minutes of that neck up. And then the next 5 minutes is between the neck and the navel. So between your neck and your belly button. So this is where you can fondle the breasts, the nipples, the belly button, your back. You can kiss your back, massage your breasts, whatever it is. And obviously to the partner as well. And then the next 10 minutes is from below your belly button, but not yet on your clitoris or anywhere on your vagina.
Ooh, yeah, that really gets that like stimulation going.
Your thighs, your feet, your butt, everything that typically may get ignored. It's like play with that longer, and then after that 10 minutes, then you can head to the clitoris or to the vagina.
That sounds so much fun. So you guys go do 10-5-10 and give us some feedback.
It's amazing. And after that, because that's 25 minutes of foreplay, you'll be nice and ready for whatever's coming next.
Yes, I love it. That is so good. Yeah. We did have some questions for some people, which honestly, we got most of the questions just like throughout us like chatting, but I did want to ask maybe 2 of them that we did not get to. So the first one is, are there certain positions that you recommend for painless sex? Obviously if you're having pain, we need to like address that, but are there maybe positions that have worked better for some people versus others?
I get this question a lot.
I'm sure.
You're not going to like the answer.
I know.
My answer is to clear out the pelvic floor as much as possible.
Yeah.
I mean, there's angles to the pelvis. The pelvic floor is not like just some straight line. It's a bowl.
Right.
So depending on your angle, your hip motion, how much your back is arching, you're going to be getting different spots. As you change positions, you'll access different parts of the pelvic floor. So that's why it's important to, like, whether you're using your finger or a pelvic wand, to get up in that pelvic floor. And if there's an area that feels tight or stiff or painful, we want to address that.
Absolutely.
Everyone is different. I've had clients to say that cowgirl worked for them and it was easier.
Yeah.
Other people say missionary. I don't think that there's one position, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I do think if you're able to use a larger dilator and your partner can use it on you even, you're pretty prepared as long as you're able to sort of move that dilator in and out. You're probably well prepared. It's not hurting you and you're comfortable with that. It's not taking a long time. The answer is not that exciting, but that's
right. Yeah. That's just the reality. That's why I included it, because I was like, I know they're hoping for that one, but we just got to encourage them to like heal that.
Right, and it could be one for someone, and then for someone else, it's a different one.
For different
you really just have to play with it and try different things.
Totally.
Yeah.
Okay, the next question. I cannot pee afterwards for a couple hours no matter what. Is that vaginismus related?
Does this person have vaginismus?
I'm not sure. I do not know. I do not know
Okay,
them.
a couple of hours is pretty intense. I have definitely experienced after you have an orgasm, sometimes it can be difficult to pee even for men.
Right.
Which I appreciate that whatever God put in place and not have us pee on ourselves while we're having.
Yes.
So that's
I've thought about that so many times. I'm like, the Lord was really thinking about that because the fact that we don't pee on ourselves when that happens is kind of crazy. Like,
I do appreciate the mechanism. So after, like, even I've noticed after I have sex, usually if there's an orgasm, I won't be able to pee immediately. But like after a few minutes of waiting, it usually happens. So
but you do want to pee because we're trying to not get UTIs.
Yeah,
I mean, it won't solve all of it, but that is
a few hours. I'm not sure. I don't think that has to do with vaginismus, but it could deal with some pelvic floor tension or something going on there.
Right. Yeah, I included this question because I had never heard that before, and so I was curious if you had heard that with vaginismus. That is not something I've heard before, so thought that was interesting.
No.
But yeah, it could be worth chatting with your doctor about if you're having that. Well, that is our episode today. Thank you seriously so much for being a guest and being on. But guys, don't log off yet because Dr. Janelle, I would love for you to talk about your Vaginismus to Vagilicous program that you have coming up because it is truly incredible. And I think all those listening who are like truly relating to everything you're talking about and are like, okay, I really could use some help. I think this is going to be great for them. So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so last year I noticed that, well, actually 2 years ago, I noticed that there wasn't a lot of opportunities for women and people with vaginismus to get social support and also challenged to make big strides in a short period of time. So I developed this 7-day Vaginismus to Vagilicous challenge, and it's actually no dilators needed. We're not going hands-on, but we are really diving in to talk about how to release fear, how to release shame, how to really open and relax your pelvic floor. And a lot of that comes from movement and exercises. So you'll be surprised at what changes you can see happen when you stay consistent. So that's why we're going 7 days in a row. And also when you move your body in sex positive ways and also in ways that relax your pelvic floor. We're even going to have people who have overcome their vaginismus to come back and talk to y'all in the 7-day challenge. Last year was amazing. I mean, I got messages from people who literally canceled their one-on-one consult with me because they got to PIV.
Wow, look at that. You're like, okay, I guess I worked too hard.
I
lost my consult.
Yeah.
but
I was like, did I help them too much? No.
Right, no, I know.
But not everyone. So that the PIV is not even the goal. The goal is that you would feel encouraged and motivated and also feeling like a stride of improvement. So knowing exactly what's your plan of attack to cure your vaginismus at the top of the year, somewhere in that springtime or even before, it's possible. And so the challenge is going to give you that consistency, that accountability, and also strategies on pain, fear, and pelvic floor muscle relaxation, which is, I believe, the foundation of overcoming vaginismus altogether. So it's 1 hour a night, and it starts on January 12th. The recording is going to come along with it. You'll have that for like 3 additional weeks. And it's going to be amazing.
Fantastic.
Myself and 2 other doctors, my colleagues, are going to lead it with me. And you have a discount code.
I do. I have a 10% discount code. You can use code Hanna, and that is HANNA. So make sure you spell my name right or you will not get the discount. Or maybe it'll go to another Hannah who's in your program. Make sure you spell it right. I will link that in the episode notes, like the link to that directly so you guys can get it. It sounds incredible. And after, I already was on board with it with you. And then even just after our episode, I'm more just like, yes, like this sounds so incredible. And I just want so many people to experience healing. Like I'm so passionate about that, and obviously so are you, and I think this is a great tool to help them get there and just to have a community like you said, and so they're not feeling alone in this. I just think it's so incredible. So I will link that in the episode notes. Make sure you use my 10% off discount, Hanna. And then where can people find you? I also will link this in the episode notes as well.
So you can find me on my website, so www.vaginarehabdoctor.com. Everything is spelled out. And then I'm also very active on Instagram. Same name, at Vagina Rehab Doctor. Again, everything's spelled out letter by letter. So
Perfect.
yeah, I love to hear
That's
from you
awesome.
guys. Let us know what you thought of the episode.
Yes, yes. And her, you guys have to go follow her. I'm sure you already, if you're listening to this episode, 99% sure you
Oh,
probably
how
already
did I
follow
forget?
you.
I have a
Oh,
podcast.
yes. Oh,
I don't.
yes. I'm so sorry. I forgot to mention that. Yes,
So
yes.
we
Your
have to have
podcast.
you on there, Hannah.
Oh, I would love to be on.
I would love to just keep this conversation
Yes,
going. Yeah,
absolutely.
so the name of the podcast is the Vagina Rehab Doctor Podcast. And I release episodes every Monday. So check
Fantastic.
me out. And soon, hopefully, we'll
Yes.
have you over there as well.
Yes, I would love to. I would love to. We could talk literally all day about
Okay.
this. So I will link all of that in the episode notes. Make sure you go follow Janelle. Thank you again so much for being a guest. This episode was incredible. And thank you guys so much listening to the podcast, and we will talk soon.